A man wakes up at 6 a.m., checks his phone, pours his coffee, and drives to work. Same roads, same routine. He's not unhappy, but he's not fully there either. Something's missing, though he can't say what. He's productive. He's responsible. People like him. But late at night, when the noise dies down, there's a question he can't shake. Is this really me, or just the version of me that got rewarded for playing it safe? Most people never ask that question. They mistake habit for identity. They confuse approval for selfhood. And they spend decades becoming someone they never consciously chose to be. You've been trained, without consent, without awareness. Your culture, your parents, your schooling, they all had a hand in shaping the mask you wear. And if you've never paused to study that mask, chances are you've confused it with your face. The issue isn't that we were influenced, that's inevitable. The issue is that we've mistaken our programming for personality. We defend our roles, our preferences, even our fears, as if we chose them. Most of us didn't. We inherited them, absorbed them, reacted to them, and called it free will. This isn't a call to burn your life down. It's a call to examine it. To notice the difference between what you've chosen and what you've been handed. To ask the kind of questions that don't come with easy answers. Who am I when I stop performing? Who am I when no one's watching? The first time you ask that, it'll feel like nothing happens, but something will. A crack will form in the script. And through that crack, something else can get through. Something older than your name, older than your resume, older than your opinions. Something real. If you've ever felt like you were sleepwalking through life, this isn't a crisis. It's the beginning. Because the moment you realize you've been asleep, you're not asleep anymore. Let's go there. Long before self-help became a billion-dollar industry, the question of the self-haunted serious minds. Socrates didn't tell people what to believe. He asked them what they thought they knew, and then dismantled it. Know thyself wasn't a slogan. It was a warning. Most people don't. Centuries later, Nietzsche sharpened the blade. Come who you are. Not discover, become. Meaning you're not there yet. You've been shaped by forces that didn't care who you were. And if you want to reclaim yourself, it's going to cost you something. Comfort, certainty, approval, take your pick. The truth doesn't come cheap. Carl Jung took it deeper. He studied the persona, the social mask. He said we wear it to survive, to be accepted, to be safe. But he also warned that the longer you wear it, the more it fuses with your skin. You forget it's a mask. You start defending it, building a life around it, and calling that life me. The Stoics went in a different direction but landed in a similar place. Epictetus said we are disturbed not by events but by our interpretation of them, meaning your experience of reality is filtered through a lens you didn't design. If that lens is warped, your reality will be too. Each of these thinkers, in their own way, pointed to a core idea. Most of what you believe to be you is secondhand. It was fed to you by your family, your society, your media. You didn't choose the stories, you just learned to repeat them. And if you don't interrupt that loop, those stories become your life. This isn't about philosophy as a thought experiment. It's about history as a mirror. If people have been grappling with the same problem for thousands of years, maybe the issue isn't individual confusion. It's systemic misdirection. Maybe the systems we're born into don't want self-aware individuals. Maybe they run better when we stay confused, compliant, and convinced we're free. The point isn't to reject everything you've been taught. The point is to stop accepting it without scrutiny. To ask yourself, where did this belief come from? Who benefits if I keep it? Because once you start tracing your beliefs back to their origin, you'll find that many of them aren't rooted in truth. They're rooted in control. And control works best when it's invisible, when the prisoner doesn't know they're in a cell. That's what we're really talking about here. Not personality, but freedom. Not rebellion, but clarity. Not waking up in a political sense, but in a psychological one. Because the deepest form of control isn't force, it's belief. It's when you accept the frame without ever seeing the frame. Most people think identity is about choice. You pick your style, you pick your job, you pick your beliefs, you think that's who you are. But most of what you think you picked was never really chosen. It was shaped. Your clothes say something about you, but they also say something about the time you live in, the money you make, the tribe you want to signal to. Your politics? Chances are they mirror your parents, your peers, or the algorithm. Your job? probably tied to security, not passion. Most of your decisions weren't made in a vacuum. They were made under pressure. Some of it direct, most of it invisible. That's the surface. A version of self built for survival. It gets you through the day. It gets you praise. It gets you paid. And the better you get at playing the role, the harder it becomes to admit it's a role. You smile when you don't feel like it. You nod when you disagree. You say you're fine when you're not. And you tell yourself that's just life. It's not lying, it's adapting. But over time, the performance becomes permanent. You forget you're acting. You forget there was ever a script. You forget there's a gap between the self that shows up and the self that's watching from behind your eyes. It's not your fault. You were trained to play this part. Early. Teachers rewarded compliance. Parents reinforced roles. The smart one. The shy one. The difficult one. Labels stuck before you had a chance to test who you actually were. And the rewards came fast. Approval, belonging, predictability. So you stayed in the box. You learned not to question it. You told yourself it was your personality, but it was just armor. It kept you from rejection, but it also kept you from yourself. Look at how society treats certainty. People who speak in confident cliches get airtime. People who pause, reflect, ask uncomfortable questions, they get ignored, or mocked, or shut down. So we perform certainty. We wear the uniform, we parrot the script. And we forget the performance was optional. That's the trap on the surface. You're praised for playing the part, but punished the moment you drop the act. The mask doesn't stay on by accident. There's a system underneath it. A quiet architecture that rewards conformity and punishes divergence. Not with violence, but with discomfort. With exclusion. With subtle signals that tell you you're drifting too far from the script. This structure starts early. Before memory. You learn what gets you attention. You learn what gets you left alone. You adjust. You adapt, not consciously. Just enough to avoid pain. And over time, those small adjustments become patterns. Patterns become personality. And no one calls it survival. They call it growing up. But there's a cost. The more you suppress the parts that don't fit, the more fragmented you become. And the more fragmented you become, the more you rely on outer structures to hold you together. Your job, your relationships, your beliefs. Not because they feel right, but because they keep you from falling apart. This is where the structure holds you. It convinces you that you are your role, that your value comes from staying in line. That breaking pattern equals breaking down. That belief is reinforced everywhere. Schools reward obedience. Corporations reward predictability. Social media rewards emotional certainty and digestible lines. There's no room for inner conflict. No time for slow questions. Just brand yourself and stick to it. The most effective control doesn't need to shout. It whispers. It tells you to be reasonable, to stay practical, to avoid risk. It speaks in the voice of your parents, your teachers, your peers. You don't resist it because it sounds familiar. It sounds like love, but it's not love. It's containment. And yet that's exactly what real selfhood demands. The system doesn't need to break you. It just needs to keep you afraid of becoming someone it can't define. That's the structure. Not just outside you, but inside you. The internalized guardrails, the reflex to explain yourself, to tone it down, to wait for permission. The next question is, why don't we see it? Why do we defend it? Why do we cling to something that keeps us small? The structure stays intact because we defend it. Not because we love it, but because we fear what's outside it. When you've lived your whole life in a house, even if it's dark, cold, and cramped, stepping outside doesn't feel like freedom, it feels like dying. We resist the shift because we've built too much on the current version of ourselves. We've tied our worth to a role. We've attached our relationships, our identity, even our sanity to a version of life that works, but barely. And the mind would rather protect barely working than risk falling into the unknown. This isn't just personal, it's cultural. You were taught to be useful before you were taught to be whole. You were raised to be polite before you were allowed to be honest. You were trained to be liked, not to be known. So when the real self starts to surface, the alarms go off. Not just in you, but in everyone around you. Family calls it rebellion. Friends call it selfishness. Colleagues call it instability. No one's trying to hurt you, they're just scared. Your growth makes them question their own stillness. And not everyone is ready for that. Even your own body resists. You feel the pull toward change, but it comes with anxiety, self-doubt, guilt. That's not weakness. That's the nervous system trying to keep you alive in a world where approval used to mean survival. And if you've spent years earning love by staying small, of course growth feels dangerous. This is why people don't change. Not because they're lazy, because they're loyal. Loyal to the version of themselves that kept them safe. Loyal to the people who knew them as someone else. Loyal to a story that was never theirs but felt like home. And when they finally do change, when they start breaking the script, they feel the full weight of isolation. People pull away. Support turns silent. The old rewards vanish. That's the resistance. It's not just internal friction, it's the social cost of becoming real. And still, some people move forward, because eventually the pain of staying stuck becomes louder than the fear of becoming free. That's the crack in the armor. That's the beginning of the shift. Something happens when you stop trying to fix yourself and start trying to see yourself. The shift isn't loud. It doesn't look like a breakthrough. It looks like you sitting still, realizing that most of your suffering came from trying to live up to a version of you that never felt right. The quiet shift is not about becoming something new. It's about remembering something old. The part of you that was buried, not broken, just covered by layers of performance, fear, and expectation. You don't need to invent your real self. You need to uncover it. This is where things get clearer. You stop asking, "What should I be doing?" and start asking, "What's no longer mine to carry?" You let go of obligations that never aligned, roles that drain you, beliefs that shrink you. Not out of rebellion, but relief. You stop chasing improvement and start practicing presence. You notice when your yes means no, when your smile is armor, when your ambition is a disguise for fear. And you don't shame yourself for it. You just see it. You name it. And in that naming, something softens. You begin to realize that peace isn't found in control. It's found in congruence, when what you think, feel, and say finally match. And when they don't, you pause, you adjust. Not to please anyone, just to stop betraying yourself. And the world doesn't clap for that. You won't go viral, you won't get awards, but you'll feel it in your body, in your breath, in the way you stop bracing for life and start moving through it without flinching. The quiet shift is when you stop asking for permission to exist. You no longer need someone to understand you. You understand yourself. You don't need proof that you're enough, you just are. From the outside, it looks like nothing changed. Same job, same apartment, same name. But the inside, the operating system, is different. The war is over, the noise is gone, and what's left is quiet. Not the absence of sound, the presence of truth. There's a rule most people follow without realizing it. It's not written down, no one teaches it, but everyone learns it. Stay close to who you've been, even if it's killing you. This rule runs deep. It tells you that changing too much too fast is dangerous. It tells you that becoming someone new is a betrayal, that healing is disloyalty, that honesty is ungrateful, so you stay where it's familiar. You downplay your growth, you shrink your truth, you explain yourself to people who aren't listening. You wait for permission from people who are still living their own lie. That's the unspoken contract. Don't become so real that it threatens the fake peace around you. You'll feel this pressure most when you start to change, when you start to say no to things you used to tolerate, when you stop performing the old version of yourself, when you stop laughing at jokes that aren't funny, when you stop hiding what hurts. Suddenly you're different. You're difficult. You've changed. Yes, you have. That's the point. But the world won't celebrate that. It'll test you. It'll try to pull you back. Not because people are cruel, because your growth makes their stuckness harder to ignore. So they'll say you're overreacting, you're too sensitive, you're selfish. And if you're not solid in who you've become, you'll believe them. You'll walk it back. You'll play small again. Not because you want to, but because the old world is louder than the new one. That's how the rule holds. Not with facts, with fear, not with truth, with guilt. And unless you see it for what it is, you'll spend your life pretending to be someone you've outgrown, just to keep other people comfortable. The real shift begins when you stop doing that. When you stop apologizing for becoming more yourself, that's when the rule breaks. And that's when you finally start to live. You don't need a retreat. You don't need a guru. You need to start paying attention. Start with the small things. Watch your reactions. When you say yes but mean no. when you laugh but don't find it funny, when you agree just to avoid tension. These moments are data. They show you where you're out of sync. Begin with awareness, not action. Catch yourself mid-pattern, not to punish, just to see it. You can't change what you're still blind to. Next, question your stories. The ones that begin with, "I'm just the kind of person who," or "I could never." Where did that story come from? Who told you that? Was it true then? Is it true now? Then go one step deeper. What do you avoid? What part of yourself do you hide from others or from yourself? That's not weakness. That's the edge of your map. That's where the work begins. Make space for silence. No input, no distractions. Just sit. Let the discomfort come. Let the old voices speak. Don't argue. Don't run. Just watch. This is where the mask starts to slip, not through effort, through honesty. And you don't need to fix everything overnight. You don't even need to fix it at all, you just need to tell the truth. The truth about what you feel, about what you want, about what you're pretending not to need. If the truth threatens your relationships, your work, your routines, that doesn't mean the truth is the problem. It means those things were built around a version of you that wasn't real. You'll feel guilt, you'll feel fear. That's part of the process. You're not just changing behaviors, you're changing identity. That feels like death to the part of you that thinks survival depends on being liked. Give yourself room to be misunderstood. Not everyone will get it. Not everyone has to. Clarity isn't for them. It's for you. And when it gets hard, and it will, remember this. Staying asleep costs more than waking up. Because every time you betray yourself to keep the peace, you teach yourself that your truth is dangerous, that your needs are optional, that your life belongs to everyone but you. That's not sustainable, it's just quiet suffering. So start small. Tell one truth. Say one number. Take one step back from the edge of your performance. That's how it begins. Now we end where all of this leads. Not with answers, but with a question that will stay with you. What if nothing's wrong with you? What if the discomfort you felt, the tension, the restlessness, the quiet ache, was never a sign that you're broken, but that you're waking up? What if your anxiety isn't a flaw to fix, but a signal that you're living out of alignment? What if the reason you're tired isn't because you're weak, but because you've been carrying a version of yourself that was never yours? You don't need a better version of you. You need a truer one. That version may not be louder. It may not be flashier, but it will feel different, steadier, clearer. Not because it fits some external mold, but because it finally fits you. You don't need to become someone else. You need to stop being who you're not. And that's not a leap, it's a return. The question is, will you go back to the surface or will you keep going? Because the moment you stop asking how to fit in and start asking what's real, that's the moment your life begins.